Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living right here in Fullerton, California. My name is Tomoko Rosas and I'm a practitioner at this beautiful spiritual community. Please join me in our purpose statement. We are a loving spiritual community empowering all to live healthy and successful lives through practicing the principles of science of mind. So I have a few announcements before we get started. Our wonderful paint party has been postponed after the New Year, so please stay tuned and we'll be announcing that shortly. And we are looking for slogans for 2022. What rhymes with 2 or 22? And I do have some entries, more entries that came in this morning. Let me just read some of these out to get everybody inspired to write some slogans and enter it. Our light shines through in 2022. Very good. God's here for you in 2022. May we be blessed with all that is new in 2022. Very nice. And let's see, where else? Divine view in 2022. Dreams come true in 2022. Vision anew in 2022. Be sure to join us for our beautiful family candlelight service that's coming up this Wednesday, and 6:30 dinner will be served, and the service will start at 7 p.m. and it's free to everyone, so please invite your family and friends. Our Christmas service is on Sunday, December 19th. That's our official Christmas service, and that's next Sunday. Can't believe it's already next Sunday. And 3 lucky people will go home with a holiday gift and special holiday dessert and coffee for everyone after service, so please join us. Unexpected Income Club is going so well, really great. We're almost to $14,000 point, so thank you for participation, your continued participation. So that's it for me, and I'll turn it over to Carol.
And let's just turn within to the center of our being and allow our minds to unite with that Christ consciousness as we come together in love and in one mind. We recognize that divinity that is within each one of us. For Father, Mother, God, we know that we are all connected wherever we may be located. We are all one in love, in life, in truth, and in mind. And as we listen to this divine presence within us, we think of its perfection, and we know that this perfection is from a place of oneness within us, and that our service is a blessing to each one of us. And I speak a word of thanks to all who have made it possible for us to enjoy. I thank our board, my fellow practitioners, our musicians, our ushers, those who prepare coffee fellowship, those who work in the office, and our junior church, the children and the teachers. And we thank our fabulous Reverend Bill, and we know that his message will be just what we need to hear today. And also, we say a prayer for those affected by the tornado in Kentucky. And we know that God is right there helping and with everyone involved. And today we're just grateful for everyone who's here and also for those at home. We love and are thankful for you all. And as we come together this Christmas season, we celebrate love, joy, peace, and the power of spirit. And I declare that this service is perfect, whole, and complete, and a blessing to us all. And so it is.
I need to be still. Let God love me. I need to be still. Let God love me. When this old world starts to push and shove me, I need to be still. Let God love me.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Carol Riseling, a practitioner here at our center, and I have a little Christmas story for us today. And I actually bought a book several years ago at Sam's Club. I saw it. It was a Christmas book, and it's selected stories from Guideposts magazine, and I always like to read one of these stories at Christmas. And I guess the Guidepost magazine was actually founded by Norman Vincent Peale. So there's some good positive stories, but this one's called A New Look at Myself. It was just before Christmas, and my situation seemed impossible, or so I thought. I had a dull job with low pay and a difficult boss, and my dreary basement apartment in Chicago was shared with what I considered an ungrateful, unemployed sister. My 10-year-old daughter was beginning to show signs of being mentally disabled, and my estranged husband completely ignored his obligations. I felt hopeless. During the long ride to work on the bus, I had developed a sort of mechanical habit of praying, as though God were a Santa Claus. I would pray for a raise, but I hated my job and my boss. I would pray for help from my estranged husband, but I considered him a cheat, a liar, and a drunkard. I would pray for better living conditions, but I despised our apartment and our monotonous economical food. And then, on the very Friday before Christmas, the sky fell in. I lost my purse containing a week's salary. I was in a department store shopping when I became aware that my purse was gone. I had to rush to the store's office to report my loss and ask for a bus fare home. Outside on State Street, Christmas carols filled the air, but their beauty did not penetrate the bitterness in my heart. At that moment, I felt that Jesus Christ's mission on earth was all in vain. By the time I got seated on the bus, anger commenced to dissolve into self-pity. I began to pray again and said, "My God, why did all these things have to happen to me?" Tears came to my eyes and I had no tissues. I felt alone in a world without love. Presently, I felt something touch my hand. A woman sitting next to me was silently offering a handful of tissues. She didn't speak and neither did I, but somehow I knew she was also handing me compassion and understanding. Suddenly, a wall seemed to give away inside of me, and I felt ashamed. I began to pray again, but this time I prayed for forgiveness. I prayed for guidance. I prayed for understanding. And as I prayed, an amazing transformation took place in my attitude. My sister, who was an undeserving captive of my sharp criticism and morose outlook, I thought of her and I began to think, maybe my viewpoint should be changed. And then I thought about my husband. Maybe things would be different if I gave more consideration to his side of the story. For the first time, I began to associate my boss's disagreeableness with his struggle to keep the firm solvent against stiff competition. And for the first time in many months, I thought of my daughter as someone sweet to be loved and cared for, rather than as a constant source of worry. By the time I got home, being broke no longer seemed so important. I still had a job, a family to love, and a warm apartment. And many, many people that night had less. The next morning, a surprising succession of blessings started to reach us. 2 young schoolgirls knocked on the door and delivered a large box of Christmas food. Soon after that, our insurance agent came by with news of a cash settlement for a claim placed months earlier. Then my sister came home and said she had found a job. And that day, my husband sent a check in the mail. But to top it off, on the first of the year, I was promoted to a better job with a raise, and my boss told me that my attitude had made him decide to consider me for the promotion. Although this whole experience seemed to bring many material rewards, the most important benefit to me was discovering the kind of prayer where I quit trying to run my life and instead turn everything over to God. The result was that God gave me the desire to change myself, and at the same time He allowed me to view through His loving eyes all the wonderful people close to me. And now please join me in prayer. And just knowing and sensing that God is the one power, that one mind, that Christ consciousness that is forever governing and guiding each one of us. We are loved and united and one with this infinite divine source. We are each made in the image and likeness of God. We are whole, perfect, and complete. And recognizing this perfection, I know that this Christmas will be a loving, joyous experience for each of us, filled with blessings and love, and that everything will fall into place perfectly, and health and happiness will be ours this Christmas season. I release this prayer into the law, simply knowing it is already answered and already done. And so it is.
soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, oh Lord. My soul sings out to you. Oh Lord, oh God, you're my strength. You carry me on wings. You and me, you know my heart. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, oh God. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, oh Lord. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you.
All right, Tommy Valentino lifting us up with his music. Gosh, that place we just always love to be in. So good morning and welcome. From me, I know we've been welcomed plenty already this morning. So the overarching theme is still the Christ consciousness, as being December still. The title of today's talk is Answering the Call. So last week we talked about the voice of God. We talked about how we can hear it, we can feel it, we can touch it, we can smell it, we can taste it, we can sense it everywhere. And the reason for that is because it is everywhere. There's nowhere where this voice of God is not. Because the voice of God is just that intuition, that energy that comes to us from that Christ consciousness. And that came with the beginning of everything. Before the beginning. Certainly before the advent of space and time. Because without the Christ consciousness, without that package, that is what God is, that life principle is, that spirit is, there wouldn't be us to begin with. How blessed are we? Out of all the possible potential things that could happen in the universe, here we are. So we know that this voice of God is always calling, and is calling in the minutest detail, and is calling always and forever. But we have to answer it. Okay? We have to answer the call. We all have phones. What if our phone rang and we didn't answer it? Now I know if it says spam or marker or something, we're not going to. But let's forget that for a second. If the phone rings and we choose to not answer it, whatever the potential was for good in our lives that was on the other end of that line, we're not going to have. We're not going to experience. We're not even going to know it was there. And in addition to not always choosing to answer, what if our phone's on silent? What if we left it in the car? What if somehow, miraculously, it ended up in the refrigerator? I did not just now look over at Bev with that remark.
Uh-oh.
But if we are ignorant of the fact that it even rang, that there was good to be heard, how would that serve us? Well, in a word, It wouldn't. So when we don't answer the call, it's probably because we didn't hear the call or we chose not to answer the call. So we can choose against answering, or we can just be absolutely ignorant and unaware that the call is even coming through. But it's always coming through. We can't stop it. Yes, we can choose against it because we are human, we have volition, we have free will, we have the power of choice. Something that, if you were here for the meditation, something that Carol mentioned was about the artist, about the art. The artist does not put beauty into that which he or she brings forth. Do we get that? The artist doesn't put the beauty. The artist takes the beauty and brings it through his or herself to us. Ernest Holmes made a point many years ago that we don't put creativity into creation. We don't put it in there. We don't energize energy. We don't cause gravity and electricity and wind and every other power that we live with and have available to us to operate in this plane of existence. We don't do any of that. What we do, if we're listening and answering the call, we take that forth from the invisible and we manifest it here for our own use. And as long as we're manifesting it for our use or for the use of others and for good, our good or the good of others, what a miraculous world. There is absolutely no end to the things we can do. We do things today that were not thought possible even 20 years ago, let alone 50 or 100 or 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, when the master teacher Jesus told us, back to the reading about a person that was so bitter over the way life was treating her, we cannot pray with a heart full of bitterness. Well, we can go through the motions, we can do the mechanics, we can say the words, but we are not praying just like Jesus told us. How can we complain about the splinter in our brother's or sister's eye when we have that log in our own? And look what happened when she changed her attitude, when she changed the filter through which she saw the world and experienced it, and took some personal responsibility for her part in it. And I think sometimes that's the part we neglect. And we cannot answer the call of God. We can't even hear the voice of God if we're not willing to do it personally and to take it personally and to be personally responsible for it. Remember Emma Curtis Hopkins? Scientific Christian Mental Practice. She says that we're always searching for our good. And we are always searching for our good. Because that's what that life principle that courses through us every second demands. That's what it does. That's the principle. It's not like a pick and choose or answering a multiple choice question. The principle says that we are always looking for our good. But we cannot find our good if we're so immersed in things that are not part of that good, part of that gift from God, part of that gift of the life principle. We don't have a prayer, if you will, of finding that unless we're receptive to that voice of God that we talked about. So she says in her book, are you not seeking good? Well, that should be easy enough to answer. Why do you move your right hand? You move it to get your good. Why do you breathe? You breathe to get your good. Why do the stones lie still and wait? They are waiting for their good. Why does the bird fly? The bird flies for its good. Everything moves and waits for its good. So you see that God draws everything. Draws everything. Draws us toward that life principle. The good which you and I want governs everything we do. Therefore, the good which you are seeking is your God. And we can seek and seek and seek, but if we're not listening to and answering that call, chances are pretty good it may not find us. Well, it can always find us. It's always available to us. The other thing that came from Carol's prayer was, or the reading was, once she changed her attitude, not Carol, but the girl in the story, when she changed her attitude, everything fell into place. That's almost correct. Everything didn't fall into place because everything is always already in place. Everything we could ever possibly need or want, or everything that is our birthright, when we are living within that Christ consciousness and are aware of it and recognize it, everything is already in place. But if we've covered it up, we can't see that it's in place. All of those good things that happen to anybody, anytime, come because choices, thoughts, heart that they lived and experienced in the past, in some previous now moment. Just like the good that's coming to us is coming to us because of the way we are in the world right now, because of the choices we make this minute, because we are available to the voice of God and willing to answer it. She also says, somewhere later in the book, because it's not just about the concept. I mean, the concept of always being in that godly state is definitely important. But we have to be careful that we don't get ourselves in a position where we are theorizing and not doing. Because it's about the practice. This teaching is about the practice. Teach and practice, Ernest Holmes says. That's all we have. Teach, practice. And way more important, I think, is the practice part. Because if we are practicing answering that call, that voice of God, if we're practicing it, that comes through. That is teaching. That makes our life a lesson to be given to all those in our sphere of influence. So she says, sometimes you must stop giving thanks just to the Supreme God and name everything as your bounty. For God seems afar off sometimes. We shouldn't let that happen, but truth is we do, don't we? Sometimes we let that happen. We let God seem like it's a concept somewhere outside of us and somewhere far off. And not speaking and breathing through our world and every object in it. By stretching the mind forth to be grateful to our idea of God, we do well. But we do well to look at the God near at hand also. So, if we're deaf to the phone and we're deaf to the voice of God calling to us, or again, if we're just in ignorance of it, we don't know it's ringing, we're not aware of it, we don't have an opportunity to answer it. And I think those are mostly mostly the reasons. That's two reasons, but I think there's a third. And I think the third has to do with fear. We might be afraid to answer that. Have you ever felt like you were afraid of a venture or doing something because you thought maybe I'm just not quite good enough for that, or maybe there's other people that are better than that, or maybe I'm going to be judged and criticized by people who do better than that? And then you do it, and what happens? You're brilliant. You're brilliant. Because that's what we are. We're born in brilliance. Once we get past that fear and we commit ourselves to doing whatever it is we're doing, that's answering the call, isn't it? And when we answer the call in that fashion, we are right there in the groove. We're right there in the flow. So, remember Joel Goldsmith, and I talked about this from last week, the thunder of silence. Thunder of silence? Yeah, sometimes, have you ever had a little something that, like a yearning, a longing for something, and it's kind of non-specific, you can't quite get your finger on it, and you think everything's going great. It's certainly easy enough to recognize when things aren't going great, isn't it? We don't have to think about that much. But when things are going great, and we've all been there, life is good. A good job, got a good partner, got good hobbies, get lots of sleep, get some exercise, eat well, and yet there's still that something, some feeling, some longing, some yearning, I don't know of a better word to use for it, that says that there's something more. I don't know what it is, but I'd sure like to have it. Well, of course, that's what Emma Curtis Hopkins is talking about, us always striving for our good, because the very best we can be at any time in life, there's still a little something else out there for us. All we have to do is seek and find it. So Joel Goldsmith, first I want to read a quote from Matthew chapter 5 verses 5 and 6. It says, "And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut the door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly." And I wanted to read that because every week, Tommy, as one of the congregational songs, plays, "I need to be still and let God love me." But what's being still if it's not being silent? Remember, we've talked about this too, this chaotic world, this never-ending noise that goes. You ever been awake at 3 o'clock in the morning? It's not quiet. I mean, it's not quiet from night creatures making natural sounds. It's just not quiet. There's enterprise going on. There are automobiles going on. There's all kinds of noise. There are even people listening to rock music at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, there's all kinds of distractions. That's why the master teacher told us to go into our closet. And again, he didn't mean to empty out a closet, throw the clothes on the bed at home and climb into it. He just meant shut out all this noise. And I think he has a good point too. We all know somebody, don't we say, practice what you preach? We all know somebody who tells us in no uncertain terms what we should be doing, how we should be living our lives, how we should be morally, socially, intellectually adept. And then, son of a gun, you find them doing just what you were doing, which is the opposite of what they told you should be doing. That's not prayer. There's a lot of other names for it, but that's not prayer. That's not going into that closet and sitting in the silence, being still and listening to that voice of God. Because yeah, sometimes does it come and just smack you on the forehead? Sometimes it is loud and thunderous. But most times it's not. Most times it's a feeling. It's an intuition. It's a suspicion that there should be something to do. And what about those times when we don't know what it is? We know we're being called to do something, but we don't know what it is. Just throw up our hands and say, oh well, missed that opportunity. No, that's when we go into the silence. That's when we get still. Everything that all the mystics, all the teachers, all the sages have ever taught from time immemorial is meditation, stillness, quietness, going within. They all mean the same thing. That's where we hear the voice. So when we do that and we get to hear that voice, really, we can truly just sit and get still and be silent, get all bitterness out of our hearts, get all thoughts of anything but good out of our hearts. And by good, I don't mean just what's good for me. Because what's good for you is good for me. What's good for me is good for you. Remember, the effective prayer, the truest prayer, is to be always praying for the highest and best good of everybody. Because if that's ever achieved, there are no more problems, there are no more issues, there are no more things to have to pray about. All we have to do is luxuriate in the gloriousness that everything is good, everything is fine. So, back to Joel, he says, let us not wear our spiritual heart on our sleeve. Let us not boast to men that we have found the secret of communion with the source of life. Let us not expose our spiritual pearls to those unprepared to receive them. For in so doing they may be lost or trampled upon. Let our light shine by its fruitage rather than be flaunted before men and obscured by a veil of words. Remember, that's do as I say, not as I do. That's what we're talking about here. And that's that same thing, right? When people are telling us how to. They're giving us their version of the how-to manual of life. It's not selfish to keep our relationship with God secret, because our light will shine to those prepared to see light. Our wisdom will be heard by those who have ears to hear, even that which is imparted without words or thought. And that's the same way that we get it, remember? We're not giving our spiritual pearls to people who are not ready to listen. I think that's sage advice. What's that expression? You could talk to you're blue in the face. You're not going to change somebody's mind. Talk till you're blue in the face. You're not going to convince them that your way is the better way. Even if it is. And of course it is. If it's your way, it must be the better way. And talking about that still small voice. The world has come to a place where it must go beyond power and beyond mind. The answer comes as the voice of God utters itself, a voice not in the blustering whirlwinds, not in the awesome rumblings of the volcano, but a voice so still that only in the silence can be heard, and there it thunders. When we can listen to that, we then have the ability to be still and let God manifest and express as that still small voice. And I think maybe, if we think about it, and if we're honest, maybe one of the things that we have to do, one, to hear that voice, and two, to answer that call, maybe we need to wake up. We're not going to hear it if we're sound asleep or if we're just comatose or we're in another world. We have to wake up to the fact that all of this power and all of this presence comes equally to all of us for the benefit of all. We don't have a handle on it. We don't have a monopoly on it. There's only one power, and all these other powers we talk about are subsets of that power. Without that first power, without that life principle, there's nothing else to talk about. And if we're not awake to it, if we're not aware of that, if we don't recognize that that one power and one presence is the life principle, is God, is Spirit, and is equally installed in all of us, not equally activated, notice, but is equally embedded in all of us. When we stop complaining about the splinter in someone else's eye without first removing the log from our own, when we empty our hearts of that bitterness and we pray from that loving essence that we are answering that call. And that's the only way we're answering that call. Oh yeah, don't we have this amazing way of convincing ourselves that we're doing something we're not? Oh yeah, well, you know, I do everything with an eye for the better good. But leave that check for me, will you? And it's true. The good that we receive, the good that we get, the good that we expect, and the good that we should have is due us. There's nothing wrong with that. Nobody's ever going to say, don't accept your good. But we're always and only going to say, when you're accepting that good, be looking for that same good to come to everybody else. Not in the same fashion. Right? What I interpret as my good might not mean a hill of beans to somebody else. Might not be important to them. The fact is, it's not that I think you should have a blue Porsche or you should live in a 6,000 square foot house. I don't either, by the way, but if I did have those things and I had them because I wanted them, that doesn't mean that they're going to be satisfying you in some fashion. But whatever it is that you recognize as your good, we should all be praying for you with that open heart and not with any envy or jealousy or, oh, well, yeah, I'm sure happy that she got that promotion and that big fat raise. Sure wish it had happened to me. No. Listen to the voice. Answer the call. Answer the call by always looking for, wishing for, praying for, hoping for the highest and best good of everybody. Because once again, once that's achieved, everything else falls into place. So I want to just leave you with this. When we respond to all others, all other beings, all other things, all other objects, if you will, when we respond to all others with compassion and understanding and forgiveness and acceptance, and we recognize our sameness, our oneness, our sameness in that life principle, then we're answering the call. So I'm going to ask you to answer that call. Not when you get home, not next week, not next month. I'd love for you to answer that call right this second, right now. Open your heart and say, thank you, God, for all that I have, and thank you, God, for providing everything everybody needs. And yes, everybody includes those people that bring a little friction into our lives. So when we accept that Christ consciousness, that's how we answer the call. It's the only way we can answer the call. And it's the only way the call needs to be answered. Accepting that Christ consciousness, which is nothing but love and oneness and togetherness, remembering that each of us is some part of that one life. There's only one. It is God. And as each one of us is an individualized expression of that, at bottom, there is no difference. We are all the same. We get to celebrate little differences in looks and in tone and in language and in food and in every other manner in which we live. But those all come under the heading of window dressing. Because at bottom, each one of us is a little piece of God, if you will. And when we answer the call and accept that Christ consciousness, we know our place, and this world becomes a better place. And so it is. This is our opportunity to share our abundance, to share our good. We know that all of our good comes from that one source, God, and for this we are eternally grateful. Thank you to all those who are not in the sanctuary but continue to support us by way of the website, by way of the auto tithe, by way of mailing in their gift, their tithe, their offering. And for those who, of course, drop by during the week to visit a practitioner, get engaged in a little prayer, or at least prayerful talk. So thank you very much, because without you, there is no us. Remember, there's not a church and its members. There's a church as its members, and that's us. And thank you for that continued support.
My sweet Lord, my Lord, my sweet Lord. Really wanna see you, really wanna be with you, really wanna know you, Lord, so I take the time, my Lord, my sweet Lord. My Lord, oh my Lord, I really want to know you, I really want to go with you, I really want to show you, Lord, so I sing this song, my Lord, my sweet Lord, my oh, sweet Lord, I really want to see you, I really want to see you, really want to see you, Lord, I really want to see you, Lord, so I look around, my Lord, my sweet Lord, my Lord. My Lord. My sweet Lord, my Lord, my Lord, I wanna see you, I really wanna be with you, I really wanna know you, Lord, so I sing this song, my Lord, my sweet Lord, oh.
Gino. Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
Something wonderful is happening through me right now.
It's this thing called life.
It's this thing called life.
It's this thing called love.
It's this thing called love.
It's this thing called the voice of God.
It's this thing called the voice of God.
And it's my answer.
And it's my answer.
Thank you, God, for this opportunity.
Thank you, God, for this opportunity.